Your life is not controlled by your circumstances. It is controlled by the meaning you give them. Right now, whether you realize it or not, your mind is shaping every decision you make, every action you take, and ultimately the future you are moving toward. The problem isn't lack of talent, lack of money, or lack of opportunity. The real battle is happening between your ears. And if you don't take control of that battle today, your future will be decided for you by fear, habits, and old patterns. Your mind is a goal-seeking machine. Whatever you consistently focus on, it moves you toward. If you focus on what you fear, what you lack, and what's gone wrong in the past, your mind will find proof and reinforce it. But if you focus on growth, solutions, and possibility, your mind becomes your greatest ally. The truth is, most people don't fail because of external obstacles. They fail because they let their mind replay the same limiting stories over and over again until those stories feel like facts. Every belief you hold is shaping your behavior, and every behavior is shaping your destiny. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll hesitate. If you believe success is for others, you'll settle. If you believe change is dangerous, you'll stay stuck. But beliefs are not truths, they are habits of thought, and habits can be changed. The moment you change what you believe is possible, your entire identity begins to shift. Your emotions are not random. They are signals created by what you focus on and the meaning you assign to it. When you feel overwhelmed, discouraged, or stuck, it's not because life is against you. It's because your mind is rehearsing disempowering patterns. Change the focus. Change the meaning. Change the emotion. When you change your emotional state, you change your energy. And when you change your energy, you change your results. Most people wait for motivation to act, but high performers know the truth action creates motivation. You don't fix your mind by thinking differently. You fix it by moving differently. One bold decision, one uncomfortable action, one promise kept to yourself. Each action rewires your brain and builds evidence that you are capable, strong, and in control. Your past does not define you unless you keep reliving it. The future doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. You don't need to know every step. You just need to decide who you are no longer willing to be. Decide today that you will not let fear run your life. Decide that excuses are no longer acceptable. Decide that growth is your new standard. The quality of your life is the quality of your thoughts, your questions, and your standards. Ask better questions and your mind will give you better answers. Raise your standards and your behavior will rise to meet them. Your mind is either your prison or your power, and that choice is made every single day. Fix this today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now. Take control of your focus. Take control of your beliefs. Take control of your actions. Because when you master your mind, you don't just change your future, you create it. Most people believe their future is limited by where they were born, what they have, or what they've been through. But the truth is, two people can face the exact same circumstances and end up with completely different lives. One rises, one stays stuck. The difference is not luck or talent, it's how they think. Your thoughts determine how you interpret challenges, how you respond to pressure, and whether you see obstacles as stop signs or stepping stones. The moment you realize that your inner dialogue is more powerful than your external situation, you take back control of your future. Every thought you repeat becomes a lens through which you see the world. If you constantly tell yourself that life is unfair, that success is out of reach, or that you're not capable enough, your mind will search for evidence to support those ideas. It will ignore opportunities and magnify problems. But when your thoughts shift toward growth, possibility, and learning, your mind begins to notice chances you once overlooked. Nothing outside has changed, yet everything feels different because your thinking has changed. Circumstances can influence you, but they don't have the final say unless you give them that power. Hard moments, failures, and setbacks are unavoidable, but what you think in those moments determines their impact. One person thinks, "This is proof I should quit," while another thinks, "This is training for who I'm becoming." The event is the same, but the future created from it is completely different. Your thoughts decide whether pain becomes a prison or a lesson. Your actions are born from your thoughts, and actions are what shape results. When you think you are capable, you take risks. When you think you are powerless, you hesitate. Over time, these small choices compound into entirely different lives. The future you are walking into right now is being built by the thoughts you entertain every day, not by the circumstances you complain about. Change the thought and you change the action. Change the action and your direction shifts. What makes thoughts so powerful is their consistency. A single negative thought won't ruin your life, just like a single positive thought won't transform it. But repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs become identity. Once something feels like, "This is just who I am," it quietly runs your decisions. The danger isn't bad circumstances, it's letting unchallenged thoughts turn into permanent limits on who you believe you can become. The most empowering realization is that thoughts are choices. You may not choose what happens to you, but you always choose how you interpret it. When you decide to take responsibility for your thinking, you stop waiting for life to improve and start improving your life. The moment your thoughts shift from survival to growth, from fear to possibility, your future begins to change long before your circumstances ever do. Your mind is constantly searching for direction. Even when you think you're standing still, it is wired to pursue whatever you repeatedly place in front of it, like a compass that locks onto the strongest signal. When your focus is filled with worries, comparisons, and fears, your mind begins guiding your actions toward those very outcomes. You may not notice it happening, but your decisions slowly start aligning with what you think about most, shaping your habits, reactions, and expectations without you consciously choosing them. Focus acts like a filter for reality. Every day, millions of pieces of information surround you, yet you only notice a fraction of them. Your mind selects what fits your dominant focus. If you focus on lack, your mind highlights obstacles. If you focus on growth, it reveals opportunities. This is why two people can look at the same situation and see completely different possibilities. The mind isn't neutral. It's actively scanning the environment to support whatever goal your focus is programmed into it. The danger is that many people allow their focus to be controlled by fear, past failures, or other people's opinions. When this happens, the mind still does its job. It just moves in the wrong direction. You start avoiding challenges instead of pursuing growth. You notice reasons to quit instead of reasons to persist. Over time, this creates a life that feels stuck, not because progress was impossible, but because focus was never intentionally chosen. When you consciously decide what to focus on, everything begins to shift. Focus on learning and mistakes become feedback. Focus on solutions and problems become puzzles to solve. Focus on contribution and your actions gain meaning. The mind responds immediately, aligning your energy and behavior with that focus. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about directing your attention toward what moves you forward instead of what holds you back. Your emotions follow your focus with absolute loyalty. Focus on what you fear losing and anxiety grows. Focus on what you're grateful for and strength returns. This emotional response isn't accidental. It's your mind fueling you in the direction you've chosen. The more emotional intensity attached to a focus, the faster the mind drives you toward it, reinforcing the same patterns again and again. The most powerful change happens when focus becomes intentional and consistent. A clear vision repeated daily gives the mind a target. Once that target is set, your thoughts, actions, and even instincts begin aligning with it. You don't force progress. It starts happening naturally because your mind is doing what it was designed to do. Move you toward what you focus on most. From the moment you were young, your mind began collecting rules about who you are and what is possible for you. These rules did not come from truth. They came from experiences, opinions, failures, and repeated messages. Somewhere along the way, a thought like, I'm not good at this, or people like me don't succeed, got repeated enough times that it stopped sounding like a thought and started sounding like reality. But in truth, these beliefs were learned, not proven, and learning can always be undone. Limiting beliefs survive because they feel familiar, not because they are accurate. The mind prefers certainty over growth, even if that certainty is painful. Once a belief is formed, your brain looks for evidence to support it and ignores anything that contradicts it. This is why someone can succeed repeatedly yet still feel undeserving, because the belief was learned long before the success occurred. Familiar thoughts feel safe, and safety often wins over truth. What makes limiting beliefs so powerful is that they operate quietly. You don't wake up and announce, today I will limit myself. Instead, the belief shows up as hesitation, procrastination, or settling for less. You tell yourself you're being realistic, but in reality, you're obeying an old mental habit. These habits don't shout, they whisper, convincing you that staying small is smart and risk is dangerous. If beliefs are habits, then repetition created them, and repetition can replace them. Every time you challenge a limiting belief with action, it weakens. When you do something you once believed you couldn't, your mind is forced to update its rules. Confidence doesn't come from positive thinking alone, it comes from new evidence. One brave action can do more to destroy a limiting belief than years of overthinking. The most important shift is realizing that believing something doesn't make it true. A belief is just a practice thought with emotion attached to it. When you question where a belief came from, who taught it to you, and whether it still serves you, its grip starts to loosen. Awareness creates space, and in that space, choice becomes possible. You stop reacting automatically and start deciding intentionally. Growth begins the moment you stop treating your beliefs as facts and start treating them as hypotheses. You test and you challenge them. You replace them with stronger ideas through consistent action. As old habits fade, new beliefs take their place. Beliefs built on courage, experience, and progress rather than fear and limitation. Fear and doubt are not enemies. They are natural responses wired in every human mind. The problem begins when you treat them as commands instead of signals. Fear shows up to protect you, but it doesn't get to decide your future unless you hand it that authority. The moment you pause your dreams, lower your standards, or avoid action because fear feels uncomfortable, you've allowed it to take control. Power is never taken from you, it is always given. Doubt grows strongest when you listen to it in silence. When fear is unchallenged, it multiplies stories of failure, embarrassment, and loss. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than moving forward. But safety is an illusion created by inaction. Every major breakthrough in life exists on the other side of uncertainty. Doubt doesn't disappear when you wait. It disappears when you move. The difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is not confidence, it's permission. High performers feel fear too, but they don't ask it for approval. They act while their hands shake and their heart races. Each time they move forward despite doubt, fear loses credibility. The mind learns that discomfort does not equal danger. And confidence is built from experience, not from perfection. Fear controls your life only when you believe its predictions. It tells you what might go wrong, but it never shows you what might go right. When you shift your focus from imagined outcomes to present actions, fear loses its grip. You stop negotiating with worst-case scenarios and start committing to growth. Action pulls you into reality where fear has far less power. What gives fear its strength is meaning. When you interpret fear as a sign to stop, you shrink. When you interpret it as a sign of growth, you expand. The same sensation, racing heart, tight chest, can signal danger or transformation depending on the meaning you assign to it. Change the meaning and fear transforms from a barrier into fuel. Doubt fades when your identity changes. The more you keep promises to yourself, the more trust you build within. Self-trust is the antidote to fear. Each decision to act despite uncertainty reminds you that you are capable of handling whatever comes next. When you stop waiting to feel fearless and start choosing courage, fear and doubt lose their control over your life. Most people believe their emotions are automatic reactions to what happens to them, but that belief gives events far more power than they deserve. Two people can experience the same situation and feel completely different emotions. One feels motivated, the other feels defeated. The difference is not the event itself, but where their focus goes and what meaning they attach to it. Your emotions are not happening to you, they are being generated by your interpretation of reality. Focus determines what part of an experience your mind magnifies. When something goes wrong, you can focus on what you lost, or you can focus on what remains. You can focus on the embarrassment, or you can focus on the lesson. The mind cannot focus on everything at once, so whatever you choose to focus on becomes emotionally charged. Focus on problems and frustration grows. Focus on solutions and determination replaces it. Meaning is the story you tell yourself about what an event represents. If you decide a failure means, I'm not good enough, pain becomes heavy and personal. If you decide the same failure means, I'm learning and adjusting, the emotion shifts to empowerment. The event does not change, but the emotional outcome does. Meaning turns experiences into either emotional wounds or emotional strength. This is why emotional mastery begins with awareness. The moment you notice a strong emotional reaction, you can ask, what am I focusing on right now? And what meaning am I giving this? These questions interrupt automatic reactions and return control to you. Instead of being dragged by emotion, you begin to shape it intentionally, choosing responses that serve your growth rather than sabotage it. Your emotional patterns are reinforced by repetition. When you repeatedly focus on loss, blame, or fear, those emotions become familiar and easier to trigger. Over time, they feel like part of your personality, even though they are learned responses. But just as these patterns were learned, they can be retrained. Shift your focus consistently and your emotional baseline begins to change. The most empowering realization is that you don't need life to change for your emotions to change. You need your focus and meaning to change. When you train your mind to search for growth, value, and opportunity, your emotional state rises naturally. Emotions stop controlling you and start guiding you, becoming tools for awareness instead of reactions to circumstance. Your emotional state is the invisible force behind everything you do. When you wake up feeling energized, confident, and purposeful, your posture changes, your voice changes, and your decisions become bolder. The same tasks that once felt heavy suddenly feel manageable. Nothing about the task itself has changed. Only your internal state. Yet that shift alone can completely alter the outcome because energy is what fuels action and action is what produces results. When your emotional state is low, your world shrinks. You hesitate more, avoid challenges, and interpret obstacles as threats. Even simple problems feel overwhelming because low energy limits creativity and resilience. In this state, you don't show up fully and life responds accordingly. Missed opportunities aren't always about lack of skill. They're often the result of showing up with drained emotional energy. High emotional states expand possibility. When you feel strong, grateful, or driven, your mind searches for solutions instead of excuses. You speak with clarity, move with intention, and take initiative. This elevated energy doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how others respond to you. Confidence attracts support. Positive energy opens doors that effort alone cannot. Emotions are not just feelings, they are signals that influence your physiology. When you change your emotional state, your breathing changes, your muscles relax or engage, and your focus sharpens. These physical shifts send messages to the brain that affect performance. A powerful emotional state gives your body and mind the resources they need to perform at a higher level, even under pressure. The key is understanding that you don't have to wait for life to improve to feel better. Movement, posture, language, and focus can instantly shift your emotional state. One decision to stand taller, breathe deeper, or redirect your focus can raise your energy in moments. When you take control of your state, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. Over time, consistent emotional states create consistent results. If you repeatedly operate from confidence and commitment, your actions compound in your favor. If you repeatedly operate from frustration and fear, they work against you. Mastering your emotional state is not about denying reality. It's about choosing the energy you bring to it, knowing that energy is what ultimately shapes your results. Most people wait for motivation to appear before they act, thinking they need to feel ready to start. But the truth is, motivation doesn't strike like lightning. It is created through movement. Action is the spark and momentum is the fire. The moment you take a single step toward your goal, even when fear or doubt is present, your mind responds by generating energy, clarity, and confidence. Waiting for motivation is a trap, starting creates it. Action breaks the paralysis of overthinking. When you sit and plan endlessly, the mind becomes a theater of excuses and what ifs. But when you do something, anything, your brain shifts from contemplation to execution. Small, intentional actions produce feedback, and feedback produces emotion. Suddenly, what felt impossible begins to feel tangible. Progress, even tiny, builds motivation exponentially. The beauty of action is that it creates evidence. Each step you take proves to your mind that you are capable, resilient, and committed. Motivation follows proof, not ideas. You don't need to feel ready or inspired to begin. You need proof that you can handle the journey. One completed task creates momentum for the next, and soon the inertia of success propels you forward faster than fear or doubt can hold you back. Action changes your identity. When you consistently act despite resistance, your mind rewires itself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates or gives up. You begin to see yourself as someone who acts and achieves. Motivation emerges naturally because your sense of who you are aligns with what you are doing. This alignment fuels determination and energy that no external circumstance can provide. Waiting for motivation is the enemy of results. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can achieve by consistently taking small actions. Action compounds in ways that thought alone cannot. The simple decision to begin, even imperfectly, sets off a chain reaction that carries you forward. Motivation is the byproduct, not the prerequisite. Action also silences doubt. Every time you move, your mind is forced to confront reality. You see progress, adjust strategies, and gain confidence. Inaction allows fear and hesitation to grow unchecked, but action shrinks them. You begin to understand that momentum is not magic. It is the natural outcome of movement. Once you embrace this principle, waiting for motivation becomes obsolete and results become inevitable. Every great transformation begins with small, bold actions. They might seem insignificant in the moment, a single step forward, a tough conversation, or a commitment kept to yourself, but their impact is enormous. Each time you act courageously, you send a signal to your brain that you are capable of more than you believed. The mind responds to experience, not intention, and bold action creates new patterns of thought that gradually rewire your entire sense of possibility. Bold actions challenge the old stories your mind tells you. When you repeatedly tell yourself, I can't do this, or I'm not ready, those stories feel like reality. But taking even a small risk forces your brain to update its assumptions. Every success, no matter how small, builds evidence that contradicts limiting beliefs. Over time, your identity shifts. You start seeing yourself as someone who acts with courage instead of someone who hesitates. The brain learns through repetition and reinforcement. Bold actions, repeated consistently, strengthen neural pathways associated with confidence, resilience, and problem solving. Just as muscles grow stronger with exercise, your mental capacity grows with practice. Each time you step outside your comfort zone, you create new pathways that make the next bold move easier, more natural, and more automatic. Courage is not something you wait for. It is cultivated through experience. Waiting to feel brave keeps you stuck in fear, but acting in spite of fear trains the mind to trust itself. Small wins accumulate into momentum, and momentum fuels belief. What once felt impossible becomes achievable because your brain has learned through action that you can handle discomfort and succeed anyway. Bold action also reshapes your emotional patterns. Every time you choose to act despite uncertainty, your mind associates effort with reward. Anxiety diminishes, energy rises, and confidence deepens. You begin to experience empowerment as a natural state rather than a fleeting emotion. Self-belief is no longer theoretical. It becomes ingrained in the way you respond to life's challenges. The most profound change happens when action becomes habitual. Small, consistent risks compound over time, creating a mindset of possibility and courage. You begin to see obstacles as opportunities, doubt as a signal to act, and fear as fuel. By rewiring your brain through bold, deliberate action, you no longer wait for life to hand you confidence. You create it yourself, one courageous step at a time. Your past is often remembered as a series of mistakes, regrets, and what ifs, but it is not a blueprint for your future unless you let it be. Most people carry the weight of old failures as if they were permanent labels, replaying them over and over in their minds. Yet the truth is, the past only has power when you continue to give it attention. Every moment you relive yesterday, you choose to let it dictate how you think, feel, and act today. The stories you tell yourself about your past shape your identity more than the events themselves. If you say, "I've always failed," your mind begins to anticipate failure and acts accordingly. If you say, "I've learned and grown," your mind begins to anticipate opportunity. The same events, viewed through different lenses, produce completely different emotions, energy, and actions. Your interpretation, not the events themselves, defines your future trajectory. Clinging to the past creates patterns that hold you hostage. You might avoid risks, settle for less, or stay in familiar but unfulfilling routines because your mind believes that who you were is who you must be. But the past is a reference point, not a prison. You can honor your experiences, learn their lessons, and still move forward with intention. Growth begins the moment you stop negotiating with yesterday and start designing today. Freedom comes from choice. Every day, you have the power to decide whether to remain trapped in memories or step into possibility. The past can serve you if it teaches lessons, builds resilience, or fuels determination, but it will not serve you if it controls your decisions. When you shift focus from regret to action, from blame to responsibility, you reclaim the energy that was wasted replaying old stories. Your future is created by the actions you take right now, not by what you experienced before. Every decision to act, learn, and expand rewrites the meaning of your past. A failure that once felt devastating becomes a stepping stone. A rejection that once crushed you becomes preparation for something greater. Your past loses its power when you use it as fuel rather than a chain. The key is awareness. When you catch yourself living in the past, pause and ask, is this thought serving me or holding me back? Most regrets exist only in your mind, and you can choose to reinterpret them, release them, and focus on what is possible today. The moment you stop identifying with yesterday and start committing to now, your potential becomes limitless, and your life becomes defined by who you choose to be next, not by who you were. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life, and until you take control of it, your future is being driven by chance, habit, and the influence of others. Every thought you allow to dominate your focus shapes your beliefs, decisions, and actions. The moment you consciously choose what to think, what to focus on, and what meaning to give events, you shift from being a passenger in your life to being the driver. Mastering your mind is not optional. It is the foundation for shaping a future you truly desire. Control begins with awareness. Most people live unconsciously, reacting to situations rather than responding with intention. Thoughts, fears, and emotions run on autopilot, and without intervention, they dictate your trajectory. When you start observing your own mind, noticing recurring patterns, and questioning automatic reactions, you create the first space for mastery. Awareness alone doesn't solve everything, but it is the gateway to choice, the ability to decide what serves you and what doesn't. Your mind responds to repetition and focus. Every thought you nurture, every story you tell yourself strengthens neural pathways that become automatic over time. If your mind constantly rehearses fear, doubt, or limitation, it becomes skilled at keeping you small. If your mind rehearses courage, possibility, and problem solving, it becomes skilled at creating opportunity. Mastery comes from deliberately choosing which thoughts to practice, because the brain becomes what you train it to be. Emotional mastery is a key part of mental control. Thoughts without emotional alignment are weak. They lack the power to drive action. When you master your mind, you learn to manage your emotional state, so fear doesn't paralyze you, doubt doesn't confuse you, and frustration doesn't stop you. By intentionally creating empowering emotional states, you generate energy, focus, and clarity, which ripple outward into more decisive action and better results. Mastering your mind also requires intentional focus on solutions rather than problems. A mind trained to dwell on obstacles reinforces limitation, while a mind trained to find possibilities reinforces growth. The challenges you face don't change, but your mental approach transforms how you respond. Mastery is not about controlling external events. It's about controlling how your mind interprets, reacts, and adapts to them, turning challenges into fuel for progress. The ultimate reward of mental mastery is freedom. When your mind is under your command, fear no longer dictates your choices, doubt no longer controls your energy, and distractions no longer pull you off course. You begin to act from purpose rather than reaction, from possibility rather than limitation. Master your mind today, and you are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You are designing your future moment by moment, thought by thought, decision by decision. The central truth of all these principles is simple yet profound. Your life is a reflection of the state of your mind. Your thoughts, focus, beliefs, emotions, and actions are the building blocks of your future. Fear, doubt, and past experiences only have power if you let them, and motivation is born from movement, not waiting. By taking control of your mind, challenging limiting beliefs, mastering your emotions, and committing to bold action, you unlock the ability to create the life you truly desire. The choice is yours. Stop letting life happen to you and start designing your destiny today.